The stars are right, and that means it's time for another episode of The Whisper in Darkness. I'm your host, the Man from Lang. Thank you very much for joining me today. On this episode, I am reviewing the Survivor and Neutral cards in For the Greater Good, the third Mythos pack in the Circle Undone cycle. There are spoilers throughout if you care about that sort of thing. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Without further ado, let's get started. The first Survivor card in the pack is an upgrade for Grizzly Totem. It's a 2-cost asset that costs 3 experience points. It has Willpower and Agility skill icons and the item Charm and Blessed traits. It has the following response: after you commit a card to a skill test, exhaust Grizzly Totem. That card gains another instance of one of its skill icons of your choice. If that skill test fails, return that card to your hand. Grizzly Totem takes up an accessory slot. The Survivor upgrade for Grizzly Totem isn't that much different from its dual-class counterpart. It's a resource cheaper, it comes with an extra Willpower skill icon and the Blessed trait, which means it's fair game for Father Mateo decks, which seems a little odd. Perhaps the most significant change to the card is the game text. In addition to duplicating a skill icon on a card you commit to a skill test, Grizzly Totem also lets you return that card to your hand if the skill test fails. This effect is somewhat similar to Silas Marsh's response, with a couple of notable exceptions. First, you may bounce any card, not just skill cards, back to your hand. And second, and this one is the big one, you need to fail the skill test. I touched briefly on the failure tech in the Survivor class during my review of Drawing Thin in the Wages of Sin Mythos pack. Briefly, survivors can play a combination of Rabbit's Foot, a Survivor asset from the core set, Take Heart, a Survivor skill from Heart of the Elders, Drawing Thin, a Survivor asset from the Wages of Sin, to intentionally tank skill tests to generate resources and draw cards. If you've got all 3 in play and you fail a skill test, you will generate either 4 resources and draw 3 cards, or generate 2 resources and draw 4 cards. If you've got a second copy of Drawing Thin on the table, you get another 2 resources or a card on top of that. If you've upgraded to level 3 Rabbit's Foot, you get to pick one of the cards you draw from the top X cards of your deck, where X is the amount by which you failed the skill test. Grizzly Totem 3 requires an accessory slot, so you can't play it in combination with Rabbit's Foot unless you purchase Relic Hunter, a neutral permanent from the Essex County Express that gives you an additional accessory slot. However, Grizzly Totem 3 is a much better choice than Rabbit's Foot in this sort of combination for one simple reason. If you trigger Grizzly Totem's response after you commit Take Heart to the skill test, you will gain 2 cards and 2 resources and then get to return Take Heart to your hand so you can repeat the combination next turn. If you've got 2 copies of Drawing Thin and 1 copy of Grizzly Totem 3 on the table, you may gain up to 6 resources or draw up to 4 cards each turn you fail a skill test. That is a ridiculous amount of resources and or cards for a class that is traditionally lacking good resource generation and card draw. Failing skill tests for fun and profit was somewhat balanced by the fact that Take Heart was a one-shot skill that would hit the table maybe once or twice a game, unless of course the survivor or off-class survivor used recursion tricks such as Resourceful to get it back from the discard pile. Grizzly Totem 3 completely eliminates that barrier, making it an extremely powerful combination. There are a couple of drawbacks to this strategy. First, the combination has a lot of moving parts. You need Drawing Thin and the Grizzly Totem down on the table and a copy of Take Heart in your hand. Assembling this sort of multi-card combo is going to take time unless you get extremely lucky when you draw your opening hand, or you're able to draw cards to speed up the process. As we already know, card draw isn't one of the strengths of the Survivor class. The only 2 investigators who may have access to it are Ashcan Pete, who can dip into Seeker, the Seeker class for Mr. Rook, Old Book of Lore, No Stone Unturned, or Preposterous Sketches, or Silas Marsh, who can take Eureka, a Seeker skill from the Pallid Mask. Second, you need to fail at least 1 skill test each turn. If you initiated the skill test with the sole purpose of failing it, you may be generating a pile of resources and drawing a fistful of cards, but it seems unlikely that you're making much progress advancing the Act deck. As we know, the Doom mechanic works like a de facto timer in the Arkham Horror LCG, so you can't just sit there and spin your wheels forever. If the skill test is initiated by the treachery from the encounter deck, failure often has negative consequences that may outweigh the resources and cards you gain. Third, if you want to get the combination working reliably, you're probably committing at least six deck slots, roughly 20% of your deck, of an average deck to it. Committing that much deck space to failure seems like a little bit of a risky strategy to me. That said, I'm not sure whether any of these drawbacks are strong enough to rein in the combination. It may take a couple of turns to assemble the pieces, but spending one action to generate twice as many resources as a single copy of Emergency Cash, or spending one action to draw more cards than Seekers get with Cryptic Research, a level 4 card, I might add, will give you a huge advantage against a scenario as you approach the endgame. JamJam32 points out another interesting combination for Grizzly Totem in general, and Grizzly Totem 3 in particular, namely a Succeed by 2 deck focusing on Opportunist, a rogue skill from the core set, and its upgrade Opportunist 2 from Undimensioned and Unseen. Grizzly Totem lets you add a wild skill icon to either version of Opportunist, essentially turning the card into an Unexpected Courage that will return to your hand if you succeed by 3 or succeed by 2 respectively. If you upgrade to Grizzly Totem 3, then an investigator such as Wendy Adams may return Opportunist 2 to her hand whether she succeeds by 2 or not. That's a pretty cool interaction. JamJam's 32's deck already includes cards such as Resourceful and Take Heart, so it probably wouldn't take much to jam a couple of copies of Drawing Thin in there too to generate resources and or draw cards to assemble the combination as necessary. I'll leave a link to JamJam's 32's deck down below if you're interested in taking it for a spin yourself. As I mentioned earlier, Grizzly Totem 3 is a rather unexpected deck building option for Father Mateo, although I'm fairly certain he can't abuse it in quite the same way that Survivors can. He could turn Torrent of Power into a copy of Unexpected Courage without spending a charge, or perhaps he could play it in combination with Defiance or Defiance 2. Grizzly Totem 3 turns either of those cards into an Unexpected Courage, and then he could bounce them back to his hand if he was going to fail a skill test, whether he drew a special token or not, so he could repeat the trick on a following turn. Grizzly Totem 3 goes to show how one line of additional game text can make a world of difference to a card. The nature of the Chaos Bag guarantees that you're going to fail some skill tests during a scenario. Grizzly Totem 3 improves the odds of passing a skill test. However, if you do happen to fail, you get that card you committed back, so you can either play it or commit it again as necessary. I quite like that sort of effect because it saves you cards in the long run. However, Grizzly Totem 3 could be abused in combination with Take Heart and Drawn Thin. When I reviewed Drawing Thin, the combination with Take Heart didn't seem that bad since you could play Take Heart only once, maybe twice a game unless you really worked for it. Adding Grizzly Totem 3 to the combination lets you rinse and repeat the combination every turn. If you can get the combination set up quickly enough, you can fail back-to-back-to-back skill tests on subsequent turns, generating enough resources and drawing enough cards to make the rogues and seekers in your group envious. Survivors have traditionally been a class characterized by improvisation and scraping by. The idea of digging through the garbage of the discard pile for useful tools fits this theme perfectly. I'm not convinced the whole profit by failure mechanic is thematically appropriate for Survivors, and I think it takes the class in a different direction, and I'm not sure that I really like this development. It's been a while since I played around with the whole Succeed by 2 mechanic, but the interaction between Grizzly Totem 3 and either level of Opportunist also seems a little too good to be true. The ability to pull either level of Opportunist back to your hand, whether you succeed by X or not, means careful investigators will always have an Opportunist handy, unless they are forced to discard it. That said, you do need to spend 10 experience points if you want to pull off this combination reliably, and that may be enough to balance things out. It will be very interesting going forward seeing what designer Matt Newman does, whether he feels that Drawing Thin, Take Heart, and or Grizzly Totem are a problem that may require a fix in the FAQ, or possibly additions to the new optional list of taboos. We'll just have to wait and see what happens with that. The second Survivor card in the pack is an upgrade for Tennessee Sour Mash. It's a 2-cost asset that costs 3 experience points. It has willpower and agility skill icons and the item and illicit traits. It enters play with 3 supplies. As a free triggered ability, you may exhaust Tennessee Sour Mash and spend 1 supply to get +2 willpower for a skill test on a treachery card. As a fight action, you may discard Tennessee Sour Mash to get +3 combat skill for this attack, and if this attack succeeds against a non-elite enemy, you automatically evade it. I wasn't wild about the idea of playing the dual-class Tennessee Sour Mash in Survivor Investigators, and the level 3 upgrade doesn't really blow me away either. As I mentioned during my review of the dual-class cards in the Secret Name, Tennessee Sour Mash seems like it's intended for Survivor Investigators such as Calvin Wright, Rita Young, Silas Marsh, and William York, all of whom are saddled with the potentially deadly combination of average to below average willpower and below average sanity. However, these investigators already have several good options available to them to shore up their willpower and sanity. Survivors who are really concerned about preserving their sanity can play either Peter Sylvester, Lucky, Cherished Keepsake, or a combination of all 3. Peter Sylvester boosts an investigator's willpower by 1 and lets them soak at least 1 horror per turn, 2 if you upgrade him. Lucky is cheaper and more versatile than Tennessee Sour Mash since you may use it during any skill test, not just willpower skill tests. Meanwhile, Cherished Keepsake comes with 2 sanity and it's free, which is important if you plan to recycle it with the various recursion tricks available to survivors. If Finn Edwards or a survivor spends 3 experience to upgrade the Survivor Mash, they get to play 1 less resource for it. They also get an extra agility skill icon and an extra supply. The free triggered ability is the same, so there's no help there. Tennessee Sour Mash 3 also gives survivors the same combat bonus, but if the attack succeeds against a non-elite enemy, it is automatically evaded as well. The biggest change to the Survivor version of Tennessee Sour Mash is the addition of the auto-evade mechanic if your one-shot attack succeeds. We've seen this type of effect before on Stunning Blow, a survivor skill from Threads of Fate. The biggest difference between these 2 effects, besides being on different card types, is that Stunning Blow works against any enemy, while Tennessee Sour Mash works only against non-elite enemies. Stunning Blow has made the cut in quite a few builds, including Ashcan Pete, Calvin Wright, Silas Marsh, William York, and more recently Rita Young. Tennessee Sour Mash 3 also looks decent in Rita. She's got a combat skill value of 6 while swinging the mash, and the auto-evade against a non-elite enemy lets her trigger her response to move to a connecting location or deal an additional damage, which is helpful considering the mash lacks a damage bonus of its own. Offensive-minded investigators such as Silas Marsh and William York may also benefit from having a bottle of Tennessee Sour Mash 3 in their back pocket. Sometimes it's better to retreat than stand your ground and fight, and the mash does give them a chance to evade a non-elite enemy using a combat skill of 7 rather than an agility of 3 or 4. Silas may prefer Stunning Blow to Tennessee Sour Mash 3 since Stunning Blow is a skill that he may target with his response. William, on the other hand, may prefer the mash since it's an asset and he may target that with his response if he successfully defeats an enemy. The Survivor upgrade for Tennessee Sour Mash costs 3 experience points, which is at the top end for the class. I'm not convinced that it's worth the upgrade considering what you get for it. Upgrading saves you a resource and grants you an additional agility skill icon and a supply, but the willpower and combat skill boosts are exactly the same as the level 0 version. The addition of a one-shot auto-evade at +3 combat skill is a nice touch for investigators such as Rita, Silas, and William, but Stunning Blow is a one-shot level 0 skill that provides a similar effect if you don't want to spend 3 experience. If you're playing Tennessee Sour Mash 0 and you've got more experience than you know what to do with, by all means upgrade to Tennessee Sour Mash 3. If experience points are tight, which tends to be the case if you're playing in solo like I do, you may want to consider other cards first. There is one neutral card in this pack, and that is the Council's Coffer, What's in the Box? It's a free neutral asset that costs 2 experience points. It has a wild skill icon and the item and relic traits. It enters play with 1 lock per investigator. If there are no locks on the council's coffer, each investigator searches his or her deck or discard pile for any card and immediately plays it at no cost. Exile the council's coffer max once per campaign. You may take a double action to test any skill with difficulty of 5. If you succeed, remove 1 lock. Any investigator at your location may activate this ability. Each year at Arkham Nights, a lucky group of people are randomly selected to design a player card and a basic weakness for the Arkham Horror LCG. Everyone who attends Arkham Nights receives promotional copies of the card, which undergo further design and testing before they are released to the general public. At Arkham Nights 2017, the group designed 2 cards, the 13th Vision, a basic weakness that was released in the Circle Undone Deluxe expansion, and the Council's Coffer, which makes its debut in For the Greater Good. The Council's Coffer is the ultimate tutor. Once your group opens up all the quote-unquote locks on the box, each investigator searches his or her deck or discard pile for any card and immediately plays it at no cost. That is an amazing effect, and as you can imagine, the members of the council and designer Matt Newman had to come up with some pretty powerful drawbacks to balance things out. Otherwise, every investigator would likely play this card without hesitation. Unfortunately, I think in this particular case, they may have gone a little too far with the drawbacks. The card starts off strong. Besides packing an incredible ability, the Council's Coffers is a free asset with a wild skill icon. So far, so good. However, if you are playing solo, the Council's Coffer requires at least 3 actions to trigger it. 1 to play the card and 2 to open a lock. That is a full turn unless you've got access to some extra actions. If you're playing in a 4-player game, it will take you at least 9 actions to open all of the locks. Again, 1 to play the card and 2 to open each lock. If you're playing solo and you're confident that you can open the lock in 1 turn, a rogue or off-class rogue could cheat the coffer into play using sleight of hand, saving you an action. That said, you only get 1 crack at the lock before the coffer returns to your hand. Whether you're playing solo or multiplayer, opening the coffer requires a lot of actions. Actions, I might add, that don't necessarily advance your board state, especially if you happen to fail one of the skill tests, which is always a possibility given that tentacle floating around in the Chaos bag. Speaking of skill tests, passing a difficulty 5 skill test isn't a given even if you're using your best skill. There are very few investigators that have a base skill value of 5, and even the investigators who do will probably need to commit some cards and or resources to the skill test to make sure that they're at least 2 up before the pull. Personally, if I had to spend 2 actions to unlock the coffer, I'd want to make damn sure that I passed the skill test the first time around, which means I'd likely commit enough cards and resources to go 4 or 5 up before the pull, depending on the spread of negative tokens in the Chaos bag. That is a significant commitment, which only increases with each player that you add to the table. At a certain point, I think you've got to ask yourself whether the ability to tutor for any card you want is worth all of those cards and resources, which might be better spent simply beating the scenario. If those 2 drawbacks weren't enough, the designers slapped a 3rd one on the card. You can open the coffer only once per campaign. That's right, not once per scenario, once per campaign. Now, I'd be willing to overlook the previous drawbacks because the coffer's ability is so powerful, but this drawback creates a couple of problems that complicate matters. First, you've got to decide whether you purchase 1 or 2 copies of the coffer. If you purchase 1 copy of the coffer and you've got no way to tutor for it, you may never see it when you need it. If you purchase 2 copies, you're more likely to draw the coffer, but once you trigger it, you have to remove it from your deck. You might as well remove the 2nd copy as well, since it's not going to do you much good. That to me seems like a waste of experience points. That brings me to the second problem. Let's assume you purchase a copy of the Council's Coffer at some point during the campaign. Basically, until you decide to unlock the coffer, you've spent 2 experience points on a blank card with a wild skill icon. At this point, you've got to ask yourself, how many scenarios am I willing to play with 1 or 2 blank cards floating around in my deck? I might consider purchasing the Council's Coffer if I knew I needed a specific card to beat a specific scenario. I also might consider purchasing it it if I had a few experience points to spare heading into the final scenario of a campaign. Otherwise, I think I would have a difficult time justifying purchasing the Council's Coffer, especially if I had no immediate plans to use it. The ability on the Council's Coffer is without a doubt extremely powerful. You don't get much better than pick any card in your deck or discard pile and play it for free. However, it's important to realize that card you get isn't really free. If you're playing solo, you've got to invest at least 3 actions to trigger the Coffer. Investing a full turn is significant when the average solo game lasts about 10 turns. Unless you're sporting some truly epic skill values, you will also likely need to commit some cards and or resources to pass the skill test. If you're spending 2 actions to make the skill test in the first place, you'll likely want to pass it, so you'll likely want to commit enough cards and or resources to all but guarantee success. That could get quite expensive depending on the spread in the Chaos bag. If you're playing multiplayer, that investment of time, cards, and resources will be doubled, tripled, or quadrupled. If you purchase the Council's Coffer but have no immediate plans to use it, you've invested 2 to 4 experience points on a blank card with a wild skill icon. The Council's Coffer is crazy good, but man, I just don't see myself purchasing it until I know I'm going to use it, and even then, I'd probably look at other purchases and upgrades first. That's going to do it for my look at the Survivor and Neutral cards in For the Greater Good. Like many of the upgrades in this pack, the Survivor and Neutral cards are a mixed bag. Grizzly Totem 3 ramps up the whole Drawing Thin Take Heart combo, and I'm not sure that it needed to be any stronger. The interaction with Opportunist 2 is also quite powerful, although it does require a greater experience point commitment. There are also far fewer investigators who can exploit it. Tennessee Sour Mash 3 is slightly cheaper and has more charges than its level 0 counterpart. There are a handful of investigators, notably Rita Young, who would be interested in the auto-evade. However, survivors have a lot of ways to protect their sanity without spending 3 experience points. The Council's Coffer would be incredible in multiplayer if not for all the drawbacks required to keep it balanced. Playing any card in your deck or discard pile at no cost is an incredible reward, but taking 8 actions to pass 4 skill 5 tests, skill tests that you're likely to commit a lot of cards and resources to, is a lot to ask. The once per campaign restriction makes it even harder to justify purchasing this card. All in all, I'm a little disappointed in this Mythos pack. I wasn't a huge fan of the dual class cards to begin with, so receiving 2 upgrades for each of them feels a little bit like overkill. There are a couple of interesting cards here, notably the Guardian upgrades for the 45 Thompson and the Enchanted Blade, as well as the Survivor upgrade for Grizzly Totem. But some of the others, I'm thinking here of Scroll of Secrets 3 for the Mystics, feel very lackluster, especially when all of them do cost 3 experience points a pop. I'm definitely looking forward to getting back to a more traditional spread of player cards in Union and Disillusion. That's going to do it for this review. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you need to contact me, I can be reached at manfromlang@gmail.com. I'm also on Twitter at manfromlang. Until the stars are right, keep your shotgun close and your elder sign closer. Take care out there, and happy investigating.